Good morning. My name is Ginny Diamond, and as a member of the board of the EJC, I have the honor of presenting the Champion of Justice Award this morning. As counsel to the Virginia AFL-CIO off and on since the 1980s, I first had the opportunity to observe Rich Trumka when he was president of United Mine Workers and when he led the historic Pittston strike in Southwest Virginia. That strike unified our community, our state, and our national labor movement in a way that has rarely happened in American history. When the miners went out, and they were out for over 10 months, 50,000 people traveled to Castlewood, Virginia to camp out in Camp Solidarity. Thousands of people were arrested in nonviolent, peaceful civil disobedience actions. Women who called themselves the Daughters of Mother Jones occupied Pittston's headquarters, and high school students marched off of their campuses. Thousands of workers engaged in wildcat strikes. When one of the strike leaders, Jackie Stump, was arrested not long before the November elections, the community wrote his name on the ballot, and he was elected to the Virginia General Assembly. The turning point in that strike occurred when 89 miners and a minister walked into the Moss 3 plant and had a sit-down strike, the first one since the 1930s, and they were guarded by thousands of supporters. That turning point caused the Department of Labor, the Secretary of Labor, to initiate mediation, which ended in a victory for the miners. And more importantly, it showed us, through his leadership, what solidarity really looks like and what it can achieve. Since Rich Trumka became the president of the National AFL-CIO, he has carried on that legacy of bold and fearless leadership, leading protests against anti-immigrant legislation in Arizona and fighting against racism in Ferguson, Missouri. He is a bold, passionate, powerful voice for working people, and I'm very proud to present him with the EJC's Champion of Justice Award.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Jenny, for that truly generous introduction. And please, all of you, other than what was said about the Pittston strike, take it with a grain of salt. A large grain of salt, but nonetheless a grain of salt. I want to thank you again and tell you how thrilled and how humbled I am to be here today to receive this award. See, brothers and sisters, your support of the DC Employment Justice Center is incredibly, incredibly important. And as president of the AFL-CIO, I'm glad to be partnered with you in that support for 15 years now. Congratulations. For 15 years, EJC has organized and they've advocated for working people at the grassroots level. And I got to tell you, that's effective, it works, and it's a big reason why, with all of your help, the EJC will continue its good work far into the future, helping people and changing their lives. So let us all say thank you for that support. But when you take stock of things right now, all across America, the idea of collective action is growing. It's a movement to create a new America. An America that really works for people who do the work. And we're part of that growing movement. But we're much more than workers. Our kids go to school. We have families, we have friends, we have neighbors. And while the work we do for work is very, very important, the rest of our lives are important as well. Now, our togetherness, our community coalitions, honor those other aspects of our lives. And when we unite together around our shared values and our shared vision, we lead a richer and much more fulfilling life. So together we can accomplish what we can't do alone. We can change the direction of our nation. We can win justice so that working people in the DC area and elsewhere can earn a decent living. See, that's the power of our movement, and that's the strength of our growing coalition. Take Wage Step as an example. Our worker-led movement, pulled together in no small part by EJC, and helped pass one of the best wage theft laws that I've ever seen. And I got to tell you, that's big news. That's important. And guess what else it is? It's life-changing to a lot of people right now who are getting paid and getting justice when they wouldn't have otherwise been able to. See, if you're not familiar with that law, you should know that DC workers whose wages are stolen can now win back pay plus triple the amount that was taken from them. And what's more, the law holds general contractors accountable too, so that they can't simply shake their heads and claim not to know what the subcontractors were doing, or say that that was my other brother Daryl in the process, right? Yeah. How many times have we heard that? It wasn't me, it was my other brother Daryl. So, you know, it's really one of the best kind of fixes for a problem like wage theft. And it grew from the EJC's experience on the ground right here. In the past, bad actors operating as subcontractors would hire workers, often undocumented immigrants, and then hold back from their paychecks 2, 3, or more weeks of work. And then all of a sudden they'd close shop and refuse to pay the wages that they were rightfully earned, and people were left standing there wondering what next. And what next was EJC, and all of you with your help coming to their rescue so that they could pay the mortgage check and be able to get some nice things for their families. Before this law, even if victims of wage theft won a case against their employer, if the employer had folded up and disappeared, the workers couldn't actually get their back pay. This law makes it possible to hold the general contractors accountable. Now think about that. The general contractor is going to make sure that those subcontractors pay the wages, because if they don't, the GC is on the hook for it, and I say, good for you. You deserve it. But here's what all of your support does. Your support builds the necessary community backing for these type of victories. And the EJC, I want to tell you, has been expanding with new worker clinics in Prince George's County. Yeah. Let's hear it for that expansion. And in several different parts of the city. And the goal is simple. The goal is to be available and accessible where people live and where they work. And I got to tell you, the EJC's also helped earn sick leave for DC workers. And that, my brothers and sisters, is a basic human dignity issue. So this is a very, very important time for basic human dignity. Right now, our country's being wounded deeply by dangerous and hateful messages of Republican presidential candidates like Donald Trump. And when a first-tier candidate from one of the major parties talks about things in these terms, it gives it a credibility that it doesn't deserve. It lets people have the space to say the same thing in every area, in every arena and community. See, they're betraying the high ideals and great history of the Republican Party. They're doing severe damage to our nation by saying immigrants have to go, and using offensive terms like anchor baby. You know, that kind of talk is racist. The reason I find it so offensive is it's saying one group of people is superior to another group of people. And that's a toxic message in any democracy. I grew up in a coal town, and we knew what side we were on. The bosses had their own street, they socialized with themselves, and they talked down to every worker in that town. And I found it offensive then. And quite frankly, the older I get, the more offensive I find it. And it's not enough to be offended. Once you're offended, you need to stand up and talk about it and defend it and call it out every time you hear it right on the spot. So that when it